What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and today I'm back to talk about Warhammer 40K. So it seems that we now have 500 worlds, the newest campaign before the end of 10th and the beginning of 11th edition, that pits none other than Captain Titus defending the 500 worlds of Ultramar from the Necrons. However, it seems that we have a little bit of craziness that will be going on within these campaign books because the Lion has reached out to Gilliman and they say that they will have a meeting. So if you guys are unaware, basically what I'm going to be doing is showcasing a summary of what the Lion has been doing since his return into the current era of Warhammer 40K. So basically, if you're trying to read or follow up detail by detail, this is the order that you would have to read these novels in order to find out what's been going on with the Lion. So first of all, you have to pick up the Lion, Son of the Forest book. So here it basically shows you the awakening of the Lion and why he has awoken in the current era. After that, you have to read the Arks of Omen, specifically, I believe it's book 4, that features the Lion fighting against none other than Angron. After that, you would have to play Space Marine 2, which has Titus as the main character, and you're going to see his side of the story. From there, we will be jumping over to 500 worlds, and that's where you get the current era of what's been going on in Ultramar. And then we have to wait until Dawn of War 4, because that is the newest installment that we see the Lion show up. So yes, if you've seen the trailers for Dawn of War 4, the Lion indeed shows up on Cronus. So that's basically what the Lion has been doing since his awakening in Warhammer 40K. And so with that being said, let's dive into this 40K lore. And the return of the Primarch of the Dark Angels is here. So throughout the Arks of Omen storyline, we've been introduced to a new demigod. Of course, it's the Archithane Vastor, and he has been teaming up with the likes of Abaddon and Angron, and together they've basically been hunting for these ancient relics that will form a key which will unlock an ancient super weapon for Abaddon, and it will also achieve apotheosis for the Archithane Vastor. So they've been successful on a lot of fronts. However, there's one battle that Vastor could not win, and that was against the Dark Angels upon the Rock. However, things are about to change because now it's time for round 2. But before we jump into the new lore, there is going to be a gap in the story because there's an entire novel's worth of lore that will be showcased in a different instance. So bear with me as to why and how and when the Lion just kind of appears and there's no explanation for it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and begin with Book 5, The Lion. The lore begins with the Blood Angels ferrying none other than the Lion in their ship. Lionel Johnson has awoken, and he has made his presence known. Again, the how, the why, the where, and the why will be explored further in his novel, Lion, Son of the Forest. But he's also being accompanied by Space Marines of the Fallen, which he has also been redeeming and renaming them the Risen. Of course, not all fallen are redeemed, and those that have fallen to chaos are and will be purged. It's also been confirmed that the Lion has a psychic ability called Forest Walk that allows him to traverse the galaxy via warp portals with an emergence of strange plants wherever he goes. We then see that the Dark Angels, who are completely unaware of the return of their Primarch, are amassing a massive force, calling up successor chapters in order to bring down Vastor for good. They manage to pinpoint his location, and once they finally get ready, a war begins. A massive void battle erupts as the Arks of Omens break through into real space from the Cicatrix Maledictum. One arc in particular is actually siphoning warp energy from the Cicatrix and is using it to bombard the enemies of chaos. Now, due to this, the Space Marines take heavy losses, but they do manage to bring down the Arks, and finally, this is when Vastor springs his trap. all of the technology upon the rock begins to go haywire as a massive energy signature appears. Vashdor has not only been collecting fragments of the Silver Key, but he's also been collecting fragments of Caliban that split up back during the battle between the Lion and Luther 10,000 years ago. Now he has amassed a stitched together new Caliban that has spawned the Vashdor's Dark Mechanicus devices, and this is now a demon world that he calls Wormwood. The reveal of the Dark Angel's homeworld as a demon world sends them into a blind rage, and the battle intensifies yet again. Vashdor then also reveals to Abaddon that 2/3 of the key fragments have been created, and that the last fragment is on the rock. Once retrieved, they could unlock the vault, but the location of the vault lies not in real space nor in the warp, but within the passages of the webway. Inside this vault, Abaddon can claim his super weapon, which has also been revealed that it was used during the war in heaven. But whether if it's Old One design or Necron tier, that's yet to be revealed. Going back to the battle on the surface of Wormwood, the Dark Angels and the Unforgiving are fighting the forces of the World Eaters. Their second wind helps them in annihilating the Coordinate Marines, but an explosion of blood summons forth Angron into real space once again. The Red Angel quickly turns the tides of war, and now it's the Dark Angels who are on the defensive. But out from the smog-filled sky, a squad of golden-clad warriors erupt, raining down a hail of bolter fire upon the Demon Primarch. Dante and his sanguinary guard have arrived, and thanks to the Blood Angels, Azrael, who had been trying to fend off Angron, finally gets that much-needed backup. The Void War above continues as yet another Chaos fleet enters this sector of space. But this fleet is also just a distraction, for Vashdor then begins to communicate with something deep within the rock, the Tuchula engine. It is revealed that Caliban has actually been a very important planet to that of the Old Ones so long ago, and upon it resides an ancient sentient navigational device, and this device is the missing 1/3 of the Silver Key. This engine allows for safe, fast, and efficient means of warp travel without the need of the Astronomicon. And once combined with the key fragments, it is also able to create and destroy interdimensional pathways, which allow them to search for the lock within the webway. Vashdor speaks to the machine spirit of the Tuchula engine, asking it if it wants to merge with the other fragments, and the engine agrees. The battle against the rampaging Angron is almost over, as most of the Sanguinary Guard have died a most painful death, either getting torn in half or crushed to mere bits. Dante has also taken heavy damage and is now at Angron's mercy. But just as the final death blow is about to be swung, ethereal vegetation seeps through the cracks of Wormwood, and out from the warp gate, the Lion arrives. The battle between Primarchs shakes the demon planet, as the world, too, begins to mutate. Angron and the Lion are evenly matched. Attacks that would kill any other combatant are parried aside, as Lionel Johnson's expertise swordsmanship is put to the test. However, the longer the duel goes on, the angrier Angron gets, and although he's swinging harder and faster, he's now making more and more mistakes, until finally the Lion capitalizes on this and skewers Angron through the heart with fealty, his sword. Johnson then brings down the Emperor's shield on the Demon Primarch, decapitating him and sending him reeling back into the Immaterium. Even though Angron has been banished, the war is still taking its toll on the Space Marine forces. It seems as though the Dark Mechanicus and their demons are endlessly spawning through the depths of Wormwood, and the Lion sees no way for them to come out victorious, and so a retreat is ordered. The book ends with the Dark Angels and the Blood Angels losing the war, but avoiding any important characters dying. Meanwhile, it seems as though chaos has won. Vashtor has now all the fragments for his key, and their search for the lock begins. What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and today I'm back to talk about Warhammer 40K. In this one, I will be going over a summary on the events of The Lion, Son of the Forest, a novel that talks about how, where, when, and why the lion has woken up from his slumber on the rock. Because in the events of Arks of Omen Book 5, The Lion, we don't get that. We literally just get the lion out in the galaxy doing business, but we don't find out as to why he has woken up from his slumber. So hopefully a lot of questions will be answered in this novel, and I do think that we'll get to see a bunch of revelations that have a bunch of implications for the lore, not just the lion Al Johnson himself. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and dive into this lore. And as always, if you guys want to get the full summary, I will provide the link to where a bunch of you guys send me the link to these spoiler summaries. And of course, if you want the official novel, it is titled Lion, Son of the Forest, so check that out for yourself, either on audio or a physical book. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right in. So as it turns out, the lion is in this weird dream/warp state where things seem like reality, but they're kind of obscure. And he finds himself in a forest, kind of lost. He doesn't have any memories, and he's just trying to figure out who he is and where he's at. And while walking through this forest, he comes to a clearing where a lake is just there. And while looking into the lake, he sees that there is a person in the middle of this lake fishing. And now it's implied that this person is the Emperor, but as the lion calls out to him, he doesn't answer. He doesn't look back. And he still can't figure out who or what this person is. But before he begins to wade into this lake, a watcher in the dark comes up to him and tells him, "Don't. You need to leave. Do not go in there." And the lion agrees. So he goes back into the forest, and once again, he's trying to figure out what's going on. But before he can continue asking more questions, he comes across a bunch of humans being besieged by these horrors. Now, these horrors are actually warp demons, and it turns out that he's on a planet called Camarth. And Camarth is so close to the Cicatrix Maledictum that Chaos Spawn are running rampant on this world. So after, defeating the demons and talking to these humans, it turns out that they have a protector, and this protector is none other than a fallen dark angel. So they go and meet each other. The lion sees the fallen, and they immediately begin to fight. The fallen dark angel thinks the lion to be a traitor, and the lion thinks the same thing of the fallen. But before the lion can kill him, they come to a standstill, realizing that they're both fighting for the same cause. So it turns out that this fallen is named Zabriel, and that Zabriel was not a traitor when Caliban broke. He has just gone renegade, and that he's been stuck on this planet with no means to escape. But not just that, there's also a chaos warband on this planet that he's been fighting for a few years, and these are none other than the Thousand Eyes Chaos Space Marines. So upon learning about this, the two decide to go to one of the towers where the Thousand Eyes are and basically just kill them off. So upon going to this tower, they find out that there are blood angels imprisoned in the basement, being tortured and experimented on to the point where most of them have fallen to the red thirst. So of course they give these Space Marines mercy kills, and then the Thousand Eyes catch wind of this and a battle ensues. During this battle, the lion also begins to be dreaming or having hallucinations of being lost on a forest again. But this time, the forest uncovers a sword, a weapon for him, and upon reaching it in his dream, it materializes in the real world, and now he has donned a power sword in real life. So what exactly is going on with these dreams? Is this real? Is this all in his mind? Who knows? But no matter what's going on, it seems that these dreams are revealing more and more to the lion as well. as a lion using like chaos weapons and chaos powers to his own benefit. Eventually they go on to reclaim Cam Arth in full. The entire world is now cleansed of anything chaos and the few Thousand Eyes Chaos Space Marines on here, but that's not all. It turns out that there is an entire fleet of Thousand Eyes who go to attack them, and they actually capture the lion. So eventually a whole naval attack goes out. The fallen Space Marine Zabriel teams up with some space pirates who turn out to also be fallen Space Marines, and they eventually break out the lion. So now the lion has essentially a squad of fallen Dark Angels as his retinue, and they go to a space station where the pirates, aka the fallen, have been using as like a home base. And as they're going there, the lion once again dream walks into a forest where he meets the Emperor. Once again he tries to speak to him, but it fails once more. And again, a Watcher in the Dark informs the lion that he's not asking the right questions. And then, out of nowhere, the shadows attack the lion, but the Emperor intervenes, sending him back to real space. Now back in the Materium, the lion finds the space station, who is being occupied by another group of fallen who are very suspicious, and they're eventually convinced to join him. And then because of this, they now get more Marines, a Space Marine, Tech Marine, a Space Marine Apothecary, and because of this, they're able to kind of regroup, heal their wounds, fix any, cracks in their armor, their weapons and stuff like that, and they're pretty much brought up to full strength. Eventually, the lion and Zabriel receive a distress call from Camrath, and they hurry there only to learn that the planet has been entirely set on fire by the Thousand Eyes in Retribution. The only untouched area is a wrecked Space Marine outpost, and they go there. So once on there, they see a Space Marine, and the Space Marine basically tells them that they have to go to a different planet and speak to the fallen that are on there. Now clearly this is a trap, this is some type of way to kill the lion off as like retribution, but the lion, knowing this, agrees, and they go to this planet. Now on the way to this planet, which is known as Sable, the lion begins to train his dream walk, which he now calls Forest Walk, and he's able to control it. So basically he enters into this warp space, which is a forest, and then he can leave and go to basically any place in the galaxy, which is pretty OP. Now knowing that of course this planet is going to be a trap, he takes a few of his fallen warriors and they all forest walk onto the planet. Here a huge fight ensues, the fallen and the Thousand Eyes attack, and it turns out that the lion is put in magic chains. They have some psychers there, and they are forged from the iron of the blood of Sable's butchered populace. And before the lion is killed, of course, the enemy has to monologue, and he explains to the lion that he's going to remove the lion's soul from his body, and then he's going to use this meat puppet to go to Terra and gain an audience with the Emperor and kill him so that he becomes the next warp god. And so that's pretty crazy, because if you remember earlier, I talked about the Fallen going and attacking, or not going and attacking, but the Fallen being captured and taken to, obviously, Terra, and then the Dark Angels sending Space Marines to go to Terra, attacking any Custodes, any Space Marines, any guard there to get the Fallen back. And Cypher actually escapes and goes all the way to the throne room and almost kills the Emperor. So this is a mirror to that storyline, where instead of it being Cypher, it is the lion, well, the lion's body going to, the Emperor, killing him and becoming a god. So would that mean that if Cypher killed the Emperor, he would ascend to godhood? Really interesting things to think about. But anyway, continuing with the story, they go ahead and begin this ritual to drain the lion of his soul from his body, but the lion manages to hold out long enough for the Fallen to arrive and basically start attacking and wrecking this psychic soul-sucking ritual. Now, the Space Marine that was doing this, Seraphax, the Chaos Space Marine, eventually ascends to a full demon, and he's fighting off the Fallen until finally one of the Fallen stabs him in the back, and this attack ends up killing him. So it turns out that these Space Marines from the Thousand Eyes also contain some Fallen within their ranks, and that these Fallen thought that this killing of the Emperor would actually allow the Emperor to revive, since he is a perpetual, and that they weren't fully chaos. So because of this, the Lion basically forgives them of their sins, and now these Fallen that have all been traveling and fighting alongside the Lion are now renamed and purified as the Risen. Now, after this whole battle with the Thousand Eyes and the Risen being purified, or I guess redeemed in the eyes of the Lion, they now begin to basically go from planet to planet and just helping out humanity there. They attack any Xenos, they attack anything that's chaos corrupted, until finally the Lion manages to forest walk again, and this time as he's going through his forest warp planar area, he sees an interesting figure. It's not the Emperor, but it's a shape-shifting demon that begins to take the shape, form, and appearance of the Primarchs, the Lion's brothers, and the two begin to fight. The Lion fights one brother at a time, killing one, but then another materializes. It's every time he seems to be getting the upper hand, this weird changeling demon, strikes him down, and it's just a battle of tug and war over and over and over again as this demon is trying to break his mind and body. But then finally the Lion gains a second win and slays this changeling. However, once this changeling dies, there is essentially a reward for the Lion, and it is none other than that of the Emperor's shield. So that's pretty interesting. So clearly we know that as he's forest walking, there's the Emperor there. So did the Emperor send this demon, this changeling, to test the Lion to see if he was worthy of this weapon? Because clearly we know that the Emperor's sword is in the possession of Guilliman, and he didn't really have to go through any trials or tribulations to get it. He was just kind of given this. Considering the state of the whole galaxy, I mean, there were no Primarchs at the time there. So the Emperor probably thought it is a necessity for Guilliman to have the Emperor's sword. But why test the Lion? More questions than answers, I feel, are coming from this novel. But we do get some interesting stuff with the lore of the Fallen, with them not all being corrupted by chaos. Some of them are just renegades, and that's good enough that the Lion has been redeeming them, and they are now calling themselves the Risen. But of course there are some that did fall to chaos, and he's been slaying and getting rid of those. But yeah, this is pretty interesting, because eventually by the end of the book, as the Lion and his Risen have been freeing worlds, eventually they come across the Blood Angels, and that's where Dante and the Lion meet, and that's how the two are seen together at the beginning of Arks of Omen Book 5, The Lion. One huge thing to kind of get out of all this is that the Lion was kind of just dreaming, and this dream was like the Emperor trying to awaken the Lion, trying to test him, trying to basically make his son be another force for good in the galaxy, and that's exactly what he was doing. He was helping the renegade Fallen rise up to be a force for humanity again. He was helping the Lion try to regain his memories, his combat prowess through all these battles with like Chaos and the Thousand Eyes. And then at the very end, when the Lion seemed ready enough, he tested him by fighting all his brother Primarchs in the form of a demon to know that he's both ready physically, spiritually, and mentally to combat any horrors in the galaxy. And with that being said, he has gained none other than the shield of the Emperor. So pretty awesome lore there. Again, I greatly recommend you guys check out the full lore summary that I have the link below, and it's best to read the novel for yourself to get all the details and everything. But let me know what you guys think about this. Are you guys surprised by any of these lore implications? And yeah, stay subscribed, because obviously we're going to be bringing you more 40k lore. So yeah, stay tuned, stay subscribed. As always, it's the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Oh, I did the